Welcome to a new episode of Melt. I'm Ritvika Gupta. We begin today's episode on a somber note in memory of Jacinda Kunha, who passed away on 7 January 2022. Considered one of the legendary giants of the Indian advertising industry, Kunha was CEO at Lintas and also worked for JWT and Hindustan Lever. In a career spanning 25 years, he was also actively involved in theatre and civic activism. On the show this week, we continue our conversation with advertising and marketing agencies about their priorities and expectations from the new year. Today, Anant Rangaswami, editor of Melt, will be speaking to Kunal Jeswani, CEO of Ogilvy India, to find out what 2022 has in store for the industry. Let's get ready to melt with Kunal Jeswani.
Hi, Kunal.
Hi, Anand.
So, as we have been doing the last few years, beginning of the year, so let's get your thoughts. The first thing, how is 2022 going to be for advertising in general? Good, bad, ugly? What do you think?
I think it's going to be good, right? I'm going to border on very good, right? Because I think 2020 was okay. I mean, we had a bit of a recovery from 2019, but not really getting there from the wastelands of 2019. But I think 2022. I'm feeling a lot more positive about it, not just for Ogilvy, but for the industry as a whole. And obviously the question is why, and the reason is I'm seeing a lot more clients, coming to agencies with pitches, with projects, eager to get back, onto media of any kind, whether it's digital or TV or print or anything, and with the money to spend. I think everybody's gotten tired of waiting till at what point should we spend money, because everybody's been holding back quite a bit. But I think they're ready now, and I think it's time. So I think we'll see a good year.
Right. Now, if I had to break that down, you did use the word digital in one little reference somewhere.
Yeah.
How's it going to be vis-a-vis digital, vis-a-vis broadcast and so on and so forth?
Yeah, I think digital hasn't had a bad year. Through the pandemic or through any time in the last decade, the money is flowing, right? And the money is flowing into digital media, but also from digital first clients and platforms, right? So I think that'll continue. Digital will continue to grow at a rapid pace. I don't think anybody, including the largest platforms, would have predicted how fast they would grow through the pandemic. They've had the best years of their lives, right? But I think that's going to continue. I think we're going to see more and more money shifting to digital platforms, to digital touch points, to digital experiences, right? But I think money into traditional media will start flowing as well, which is held back significantly.
Right. Now, digital sort of sends the cue towards performance marketing as opposed to brand. And performance money goes mainly to the media agencies and so on and so forth. So
yeah,
tell me, what do you think will happen on the brand side of digital marketing?
I think there is a lot of push towards building brand, including for clients who are digital first, because I think there's no denying the value of performance work, but I think many clients also realize that doing just that doesn't work for you. Right? It can at a certain scale. When you're a startup D2C brand, in your first, I'd say 5 years, you can get by with just growing on the back of performance. When you're in a highly competitive market, when you need to differentiate, when you need to grow beyond a point, and win market share in crowded spaces, I think just working with performance doesn't give you the kind of results that most people are looking for. Right? And they begin to understand and see the value of brand building. Now, brand building also is not disconnected from digital as a medium or from platforms. There's enough of it that you can do on the digital platforms itself. There's enough you can do across other media as well. But I think the spend on brand building work is going to see a spike for many clients.
Right. So one of the sort of series of dots I've been seeing is Ogilvy is doing a lot of collaborative work. Where
yes,
if you yourself don't have the skills, Well, find the partner, make it happen. While the idea comes from you, the overlay comes from your partners. So, just expand on that a little bit. How you're doing this collaboration and who's driving it, as in how does it get driven?
Yeah. Okay. So let's just look at the forces first, right? Which is we want to do great work. We want to do great work that defines us as an agency that is thinking in new spaces, doing modern work, connecting with consumers in new and surprising ways, right? That's one driving force, and that's being pushed across the company, from creative, from business, from planning, all of that. I think we realized a few years ago that just as we value the partnership of great producers and great directors to get great film work out, you need fantastic partners in the digital space as well to take the vision that you have and turn that into something that is real, that is technology driven, that can be brought alive in a way that even you couldn't visualize. When you came up with the idea, exactly the way we would write a script and then expect a director to turn it into something more magical than what's on paper. We're working with partners across the board now to say, hey, here's a way we'd like to connect with consumers. Here's an idea we have, right? How do you take this and make it more magical? How do you make it, how do you bring it alive across digital touchpoints, right? How do you do something fresh with it where it surprises consumers, clients, industry partners, everyone, right? It's that line of thinking, which is look at technology partners exactly the same way you would look at directors and producers as partners, people who bring your ideas to life in new and surprising ways. Right? So that's the thinking. The practical side of it is, as always, committing to people who can drive it. So we have a partnerships team in Mumbai that over the last 2 years has been painstakingly building relationships with external technology partners, identifying them, bringing them to the table. And it's not just tech partners who execute. It's the large platforms as well. It's people who help us execute as well, people who bring technology to the table and inspire us as well. To say, hey, here's something you can use, now think of an idea around it. A lot of credit to that partnerships team. There's an innovation team as well, and just them pushing in market to say, hey, we will bring what we believe is outside inspiration into Ogilvy to help you see what's possible. And that in turn inspires the planners and the creative folks to think in those spaces.
Right. So tell me, how does the client fit into this? Because earlier the client was dealing with Ogilvy, paying Ogilvy, and that was the end of his transaction.
The client still deals with Ogilvy, right? No question, right? So we're still their interface. We're still their focal point for all briefs. We're still their deliverer of all ideas and all execution possibilities, right? Again, I'm just going back to the director analogy. When we've got an idea crafted and when we've sold it into the client, we then introduce them to the partners and tell them these are the guys who are going to help us bring it alive. Right? And clients don't have a problem. They're fine. They understand that sometimes the tech needs to be outsourced more often than not. And if it's required, it's required. And they're also enjoying the process because they get to see new stuff that they haven't seen before. So they're engaging, enjoying it pretty much.
Long answer, short answer, whatever you want. Is it becoming more and more clear that advertising is going to be only an ideas business?
Yes.
Okay, you leave it.
Yeah, so beautifully framed as a question because I could give you a clear answer. The answer is yes.
Tell me, what are your focus areas for 2022?
Yeah, so Anand, I mean, we defined it as always. We go through our budget meetings. That budget requires a vision for the year and focus areas. You drill it down to key deliverables and stuff. I have two, right? In most years, I start off with 10 and try to whittle it down to 5. This year, I've just got 2, right? And those are my 2 areas of focus. The first one, and which is it's not a 1-year task. It's going to take more time. But the first one is to get clients in the industry to shift their perception of Ogilvy from a creative powerhouse to a company that operates at the intersection of creativity and technology. Right? That's the way we've crafted it. Creativity is still the heart. Right? We are an ideas company. You come to us, we have great ideas, but we don't leave the idea at your doorstep and say, now find somebody else to execute it. Right? We do the hard work at the back end as well, finding the right partners to execute, and being committed to leverage new technology. Linked to that is the work and the way we're pushing this internally is to tell everyone what we want to be known for is creative innovation. Everybody knows we do great storytelling. Right? I don't need to reinforce that year after year. What I need the world to see is the amount of creative innovation we are capable of and the quality of creative innovation we're capable of. Right? So that's the first task. The second task is that we now have 4 businesses in India. We have the advertising business, the PR business, the health business, and a new business called Experience. Right? And Experience does a lot of things, but if I whittle it down, it's about a consumer's digital experience on an application, on a phone, on a website. It is crafting that experience from a creative perspective. It is doing the strat behind that experience on what needs to follow what the consumer sees, what's going to get them to pay more and buy on that platform, and the execution, right, which is the whole technology piece of building those platforms. Now, fortunately, we've acquired and grown companies over the last decade that are capable of building. So we have Pennywise, we have Vertical. They've been made into something called Ogilvy's global delivery system, right? But they sit here, they sit in India, and they work for clients across the world. And they're capable of doing the delivery side of it. My agenda for 2022 and 2023, which we're getting the company to push behind as well, is to focus on the experience consultancy side of the business, which is to say, hey, here's what you should be doing as an experience before you actually get into building. And here's what will make it more effective. So those are the 2 things I have for the year. Right? One is creative innovation. The other is the experience business. Getting the message on that out, growing that business, getting the right people in. It's an uphill task. It's not easy. There's a lot of competition in this space. Ogilvy doesn't necessarily have a license to play in this space or a reputation in the space. It needs to be built. But it's something we're committed to, and I'm going to push hard on.
Right. What I was hoping to hear from you was spend a lot of time on reskilling people. Is that a subset of something that you're talking about? Or?
Yeah, so reskilling is an ongoing agenda. It's something that is, again, critical to the survival of the company. There are lots of things, Anand. If I sit down to say what's really important for us, there's tons of stuff. And reskilling is part of it. There is a strong HR team. There are office heads that are focusing on the skills they want to build in the company, the tools they want to bring in, the data sources they want to bring in, training people to be able to use those tools and data sources. All of that is there. It's part of everyday work. This is the stuff that I've just defined for Ogilvy in terms of what it takes for us to succeed.
Okay. So the next phase, imagine from this moment on, you got a room of 50 marketers, decision makers, they're CEOs, CXOs, CMOs, and you got a free run. Tell them what you think they should be doing in 2022.
Again, as you would imagine, we have a lot of marketer conversations. We don't have enough of CXO conversations. We don't. And part of the challenge of building the experience business is getting more connected with the CXOs and making sure we're having more conversations with those spaces. But let's assume we're in the room and let's assume we have the audience. Right? The one part that I want to keep coming back to is don't get lost in performance and metrics. If you don't build the brand right, and if you don't have the brand story right, nothing else matters, right? Everything else will give you small interim gains. It won't give you long-term brand growth. And that's the story that I think is the story that I want to keep pushing in every conversation. Right? Now, the nature of brand stories can change. The platforms on which you tell the brand stories can change. The way you connect with consumers to tell those brand stories can change. the way you deploy new technology to be able to connect and tell those brand stories can change. But the heart of it is still the story. The heart of it is still the idea. The heart of it is still, hey, I saw something from this brand that made me feel something towards the brand. And therefore, I went out and bought it. Or therefore, I thought about it the next time I was going to buy something. That to me is a message that needs reinforcing consistently. Because I think we're also at risk of marketers, CXOs, CFOs deploying too much money. And I'm not saying don't, I'm saying sure deploy, but too much money to performance-based work at the risk of not building the brand enough.
Right. So now that's a challenge. When I talk to a lot of marketers, especially in the digital first companies, we talk of, all the money going towards the bottom of the funnel and not the top of the funnel. How do you address that problem? Because that's not a problem you're facing. I think the industry faces that problem. Shall we say legacy industry faces that problem?
Yeah, I mean, again, you're right. When clients come to us, they come to us saying, "Hey, I want to build the brand. That's why I'm going to Ogilvy." Right? They don't come to us saying, "You're the best performance marketing agencies, therefore we're coming to you." So usually we don't have that problem. But I'm still finding increasingly, even with our own clients, right, this sense of, hey, we should be doing more smaller stuff. Hey, we should be doing more stuff and spend less money on each piece, and let each piece work, at a micro level. And there's nothing wrong with that thinking, right? If you're able to balance it with enough weight on the big stuff as well. When there is an umbrella of brand communication, and then when I'm on my social media feed or anywhere else, and I see a little piece from the brand, it reminds me of why I love that brand so much, and I'm able to connect with it in that moment. But if all I'm seeing is the little stuff and I'm not seeing enough of the big stuff, then the little stuff doesn't connect anymore, right? Not necessarily. And that I'm finding even with Ogilvy clients. So it's a challenge that I think the whole industry has to face together. And I don't think Ogilvy is going to be exempt from it for any reason.
So, it's a continuous challenge. John Hegarty once wrote in, I think, his second book, Hegarty on Advertising, or Hegarty on Creativity, that technology is the handmaiden of creativity. That was a wonderful line that stuck in my head. So that you don't focus on the technology, focus on the idea. Yeah. How difficult is it for you to divert the clients from technology as opposed to idea?
It's actually not difficult at all.
Right.
I think most clients come to us saying, "Hey, show me something new. Right? Show me a new way to connect with you," and they love the new tech. Right? But they also see through it very quickly if you don't have an idea at the forefront. Right? So when I'm talking to clients, they're very excited about new technology, rightly so, right? Very excited about new ways to connect with consumers. But they're also smart enough to know when it's just the tech without an idea. And that is a minefield where if you start pouring money, you're not going to get anything back.
Right. Listen to kind of conversations people had, and they go to Ogilvy and say, "I want something like the Fevicol film or the Cadbury film or the Vodafone film." And now, do you get those cues saying, "I want something like the Mondelez poster you did," or do you get conversations like that?
Yes, very much. So the Cadbury celebrations work, particularly the last 2 years, which is not just a Cadbury ad, the original film, and then the new piece of work with Shah Rukh Khan, which turned into thousands of different films for different retailers. That work is increasingly picked up by clients and increasingly brought into conversation by the clients to say, "Hey, can you do something like this for me?" Because this is new. There is an idea there. It's interesting. I loved watching it. It was all over my WhatsApp groups. And I think consumers loved it as well, right? From everything we've seen from the outside. And can you do more stuff like this for me? I'm at least getting fewer and fewer conversations which are, "Hey, I want a fantastic film." And interestingly, there is still the hunger for great ideas. So what they're really asking for is, give me a fantastic idea, but bring it alive in a new way. Right? In a sense, make technology the handmaid of creativity. Don't just give me creativity on old tech.
Okay, now I'm going to provoke you a bit. We're talking ideas, and we're talking partnerships and collaborations. Why haven't we seen a great partnership of an Ogilvy brand and print, or a great partnership of an Ogilvy brand and TV?
I think when you say a great partnership with an Ogilvy brand in TV, let's just take that for a minute. Right? And thanks for poking me a bit with that. Every piece of work that we do for television is done assuming that we understand the platform and how it's going to be used on the platform, and assuming that the platform just is what it was last year and the year before and the year before that, and the platform itself hasn't evolved. When I say platform, I mean television, and I think we are guilty of that in a sense. We're not talking to the large TV houses to say, hey, how can we innovate together for television? And that to me can be an interesting partnership conversation. It's not like we're not creating for the medium. We're creating extensively for the medium. There's a lot of work happening. And a lot of work gets recognized in great film as well. But nobody looks at it and say, hey, what a fantastic partnership between you and that media house to do something different for television. And I think the reason that's not happening is because we're all guilty of it, including me. We assume that the platform is not evolving. It is what it is. Similarly for print, we assume that we've done everything we could on that platform. And there is so much new, interesting stuff happening on other platforms that if you want to innovate, you move there to innovate, because it seems like, you do regular stuff on these and you do the more innovative stuff on those. And maybe that's a failing. Right? Maybe if we actually talk to print houses and TV houses saying, how do we innovate together? How do we use what you have, to create experiences that are both, for example, with the newspaper, physical and digital, and I'm sure we can do fun stuff. But I think everybody just feels that, hey, I don't know enough about the digital space, and I need to learn that space, and I need to innovate in that space. So all the focus is there. You feel like you have the print muscle and you have the TV muscle, and you can just churn out stuff for those meetings. So I'd say that's it.
Okay, fantastic. Well, it's a good conversation to have in the beginning of the year, Kunal. A tone of optimism is lovely.
Yeah, I'm feeling it.
Focus on brand and focus on idea is lovely to hear. Innovation and collaboration and partnerships is lovely to hear. And the last bit, hopefully you'll get provoked to do something stunning on TV and print.
Hopefully.
Thank you so much, Kunal.
Thank you. Lovely talking to you as always.
And that was Kunal Jeswani sharing his vision for the new year. He is now presenting the Mel cheat sheet. Digital will continue to grow at a rapid pace in 2022. Agencies need to focus on the overall consumer digital experience. There should be more emphasis on brand story than performance metrics. And that's a wrap on this episode of Melt. You can follow us on social media. Our handle is Ready to Melt, and stay updated with all that's happening in the world of advertising and marketing with our daily Melt update on our website readytomelt.com. I shall see you next week. Goodbye.